this video, we are working only on the skills questions found in the GMetrix Photoshop CC 18 test. We are working on GMetrix Photoshop CC 18 test 1. Task 11 wants us to create a new image that has a specific width and height, and we're going to go ahead and name it pamphlet. So what we'll do is we'll go to the File tab here at the top. We'll go ahead and select New. For this, what we want to do, because mine's by default inches, we'll go ahead and change that to pixels. And then what we'll do is our width here, we'll change it to 1094. And we'll change the height to 672. And it tells us to change this name up here to pamphlet. Make sure you capitalize the P. And then we'll go ahead and click create because it says accept all other default settings. Task 13 wants us to go ahead and select the word horizon and change the tracking to 10. So we'll go ahead and select our type tool, and I'll go ahead and select this. From here, what I want to do is go to the characters panel, and then what I want to do is change the tracking here to 10. Enter to set that change, and I'll go ahead and click that just to unselect the text. Task 14 wants us to change the font of cafe. So let's go ahead and make that selection. We'll go ahead and select our type tool here and select the text. The first thing it wants us to do is to change the font type to brush script MT. So let's go ahead and do that. It also tells us to change the font size to 80. We'll type that in and we'll hit enter. And then we'll click this just to unselect that text. And we'll click next. Task 15 wants us to create a new video document for 720p. We're going to go to name the file movie, and it tells us to accept all other default settings. We'll go to the File tab here at the top. We'll select New. We're going to go to Film and Video, and then we want to select this one, the 720p, and it went ahead and made those changes here. What we want to do now is just name this file, and we'll click Create. Task 16 wants us to change our print settings to ensure that the color handling option is set for Photoshop Manages Colors. To do that, we'll go to the File tab here at the top. We want to go ahead and select Print. In the color handling section, we want to change this to Photoshop Manages Colors. And we'll go ahead and click Done. Task 17 wants us to export one of the layers in this file. It tells us that it's going to be used for a website. We're going to export it as a JPEG and name it Lemon Background. It tells us to accept all other default settings. To do that, we're going to go ahead and open the Layers panel here. And it tells us that we want to use the layer with lemons on it. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to go ahead and right click here. And I'm going to select Export As. I'm going to change the file format to JPEG. I'm going to go ahead and select Export All. It should bring you to the correct GMetrix templates folder. We'll go ahead and name this file Lemon Background with an underscore in between the two words. And we'll click Save. And we'll click Next. Task 18 wants us to go ahead and use a style on the circles here. To do that, first thing we want to do is select the circles layer. From here, because the styles is not one of our panels loaded, we'll go to the Window tab here at the top. And what we want to do is select Styles. And it went ahead and opened the styles for me. And then what we're looking for here is the style called Blue Glass Button. If you're not sure, make sure you hover. It will display the name of the style. So we'll go ahead and select that. And notice the change. We'll go ahead and select Next. Task 19 wants us to go ahead and load a selection and then hide the background. We're going to go ahead and select layer 0, which has the fruit. We're going to go to the Select section. We'll go to Load Selection. And the channel, we're going to change it to fruit. We'll click OK. And notice it went ahead and it loaded that selection for us. From here, it wants us to go to Layer, Layer Mask, and then select Reveal Selection. Notice the background went away. We'll go ahead and click Next. Task 20 wants us to update one of our linked files here. It's the goldfish image. So what we want to do is right click on the fish layer. And what we want to do is select Relink to File. In your GMetrix templates folder, we want to select the goldfish Photoshop file. So we'll go ahead and select that and we'll click Place. And notice the change to the image. We'll go ahead and click Next. Task 21 wants us to create a new layer called Icon, and we're going to go ahead and copy an icon onto that and then change the alpha to 75%. The first thing we're going to do is go to File, Open. We're going to go and select the camera icon, and we'll click Open. And notice it went ahead and opened up in a brand new tab for us. From here, there's a few ways to do it, but I'm just going to go ahead and select Control A to select all, and then Control C to copy. And then I'm going to close out of this tab. From here, I'm going to click this little icon to create a new layer. And with that selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control V to paste the icon. I'm going to throw it in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to go ahead and rename layer 1 by double clicking on it and calling it icon and hitting enter to set that text. And then it tells us to change the layer's alpha to 75%. That's the opacity. So we'll go ahead and type in 75 and hit enter to set that. And we'll click next. Task 22 wants us to change the grid lines to dash with grid line every 64 pixels in one subdivision. It tells us to show the grid if it's not already showing. To do that, what we want to do is go to the Edit tab here at the top. We're going to go to the Preferences. And what we want to select is Guides, Grid, and Slices. In the Grid section, we want to go ahead and change this from solid to dashed. Grid line every 64. And we'll change this to pixels. One subdivision is correct. We'll go ahead and click OK. And then what it wants us to do is to show the grid if it's not already showing. To do that, we want to go to the View tab here at the top. We'll go to the Show, and we want to select Grid. We'll go ahead and click Next. Task 24 wants us to change the circle opacity to 60%, and then we're going to go ahead and change the blending mode to Hard Light. The first thing we want to do is select circles, and we're going to go ahead and change the opacity to 60. We'll hit Enter. And then over here where it says Normal, we want to change this to Hard Light. And we'll click Next. Task 25 wants us to change our rulers to pixels. Right now it's in inches. To do that, we want to go to the Edit tab here at the top. We want to go to Preferences, and then we want to select Units and Rulers. From here, we want to change rulers to pixels. And we'll click OK. And we'll click Next. Task 26 wants us to create a new brush, and it gives us some specifications for the brush. To do that, what we want to do is select the brush tool over here on the left. From here in the panel section, we want to select brush settings. We'll go ahead and change the size from 25 to 19. It tells us to change the jitter size. That's going to be on the shape and dynamics. So size jitter, we'll change that to 25%. And then it tells us to change the angle jitter to 30%. So under this section, we'll go ahead and type in 30%. We'll hit enter. And then we need to name it. To do that, we want to go to the brushes section and then select this icon for new. And we'll go ahead and type in tablet brush, all one word, capital T and capital B. And we'll click OK. And we'll click Next. Task 27 wants us to use the crop tool to straighten this image using the ocean horizon as our guide. To do this, we want to go ahead and select the crop tool. In this section, we want to click this little icon here, straighten by drawing a line. And what we want to do is just go ahead and click and drag to make the line. And once we've done that, we'll go ahead and click Enter. And we'll click Next. Task 28 wants us to select our circles layer, which has the circles, and we're going to go ahead and skew the two circles with a horizontal skew of 2 and a vertical skew of 10. Let's go ahead and select that layer. From here, we'll go to Edit, Transform, Skew. Notice it went ahead and made a selection on that. And then up here in this section, we want to go ahead and change the horizontal to 2. We'll hit Enter. And the vertical to 10. And we'll hit Enter. And then what we want to do is click this check mark to commit our change. And we'll click Next. Task 29 wants us to apply a non-destructive curves adjustment to this image using the color negative RGB. To do that, we want to have our layers panel open. And then we want to go ahead and click Create New Fill or Adjustment Layer. From here, we'll select Curves. And then in our preset, we're going to change it from default to negative RGB. Notice it changed the image. We'll go ahead and click Next. Task 30 wants us to use the lasso tool and the content aware fill command to remove the balloon from the sky. So let's go and select our lasso tool. And then what we want to do is draw around the balloon. The closer you get, the better. And we'll connect it. And then what I'm going to do is hit the delete key on my keyboard, which brings up the fill panel. We want to make sure that the contents says content aware, and we'll click OK. And the balloon disappeared. We'll go ahead and click Next. Task 31 wants us to go ahead and cut away one shape from another shape using a square that's 700 pixels by 700 pixels. And it tells us that we want to make this shape from center of the white rectangle. So let's go to our layers tab. What we want to do is select rectangle 1. Now what we want to do is select the rectangle tool. Up here at the top, we want to go ahead and select from the path operation, subtract front shape. And then we can click anywhere within this white rectangle. It tells us that we need to go ahead and change the width and the height to 700 pixels. So we'll go ahead and do that. And what we want to do is check from center. We'll click OK. And notice that it went ahead and removed that white rectangle. We'll go ahead and hit next. Task 32 wants us to create a new group and place the text layers within that group. So let's go to our layers panel. What we want to do is select this group icon. We'll go ahead and double click the group 1 name and type text. We'll hit enter to set that text. And then what we can do is just click and drag the layer into the group. We'll do that for both of them. And notice that those layers are now indented in. And if you're not sure, you can go ahead and twirl this up and notice that those layers disappear. We'll click next. Task 33 wants us to go ahead and add a text layer to the right side of this image underneath the camera icon. We're going to change the font type, the font size, and we're going to go ahead and arc the text. So let's go ahead and select our type tool. It tells us it's going to be underneath the camera icon. We'll go ahead and type in macro. We'll go ahead and select that text so we can change the font style. We'll go ahead and type that up here. Select regular for this. We'll change the font size to 25. We'll hit enter to set that. Then it tells us that we need to change the arc on this. So we'll click create warped text. We'll change the style to arc. And our bend is going to be negative 25%. We'll click OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and change my tool so that I can position it underneath. We'll click next. Task 35 wants us to export this image with a 50% quality as JPEG. It gives us our width and height, and it tells us to accept all other defaults, and it tells us to save it within that default GMetrix templates folder. To do that, we're going to go ahead and go to File, Export. We'll select Export As. We'll change the format to JPEG, and we'll change the quality to 50%. We'll change the width to 480. And the height to 270, and we'll click Export All. We'll click Save, and we'll click Next.